extremely special show today. I'm very honored today because we have some very distinguished guests who are in the Bahamas from the Journey Home Group. And they're holding a series of lectures over the next 2 nights, and this show is going to prove to be one of our best shows. Today, we have with us Dr. A.J. Varmah from Liberia. He's the founder and president of the Journey Home Group.
That's correct.
And we also have Dr. Linzi Morris, his very beautiful wife, who is also a distinguished scholar in her own right.
Thank you.
And we're very honored to have both of you today.
Thank you very much for having us.
And I want you, I just want to say this before we start. If you notice out there in the audience, we have this table in front of us. It might seem like we've empowered today, but it's true. We are empowered. This work of art in front of me, you're looking at the man of genius across here, Brother Ali Reid. And I don't want to start this show without paying homage to Brother Reid and to the ancestors that inspired this wonderful work of art. You can see it on your cameras. You really need to see it head on. You need to come and see this down. Go down by Brother Ali's shop and see this for yourself. Come here down to Brother Jones' studio and come and look at this man. This is what we're talking about in the Congress, empowerment. Brother
Yes,
Ali, respect.
Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry, Dr. Varmah, but I could, I mean, you know, I'm still in awe. I mean, you know, you come to a desert. I mean, in the work you're doing, you have a lot of progressive things you're involved in now, and I'm going to be asking you a little bit about that in a moment. But just in the context of this piece of work, this is a desert. And what Brother Ali has done is create an oasis of culture that is inspiring me every time I look at it. And it should be an inspiration to our entire country because it shows the potential of what we can have and what we can do. And I think a lot of what you're going to talk about today, I think we're going to be exploring fairy tales.
Fairy
Yes.
tales.
Fairy tales. You know Hans Christian Andersen? You know, what's the other fella?
Charles
Charles
Perrault.
Perrault.
Yeah, you know, all of those jokers.
Yeah.
We're going to go and explore the fairy tales, but not just those fairy tales. The fairy tales of George Washington, the fairy tales of Queen Elizabeth I and II, and the fairy tales of Babylon. And I hope that you're going to enjoy this show tonight because I'm really excited. But Dr. Varmah, first of all, if you could just tell us a little bit about your organization and what has inspired it, what it is that you're trying to achieve.
Well, what happened is that the Journey Home Group is an organization that we found about 5 years ago. And what brought it about was after going to university, studying and having a family, having children, and then looking around the world and realizing that the so-called quote-unquote younger people, those of us under 40, right? Some of we're coming to it soon.
But some must be over that, you know.
Right. So we kept saying, when we look around the globe, we see the Minister Farrakhan's, we see the Dr. Naeem Akbar, we see Dr. Francis Cress Wilson, we see Dr. Ben, the great Dr. Ben. We see all of these different teachers, and we notice that they're getting older and wiser. But where are we, the so-called next generation, that's supposed to pick up this baton and keep it going so that by the time our children and grandchildren are in their 30s, going into their 40s, they won't have to be stuck having the same conversation or be talking about the same conditions? Because we looked at, say, Marcus Garvey and what he attempted to do back in 1913 and 1920, etc. And when you read his speeches and his lectures or listen to his lectures, he's saying things that if you were just to remove maybe one word, say Negro, and replace it with Black or Caribbean or African American, you find that those same things are still happening today.
But we say it in the Congress. I mean, a lot of what we speak of in the Congress here in the Bahamas is really a rehash of what Garvey was saying at the turn of the last century.
Right. But what happened was somewhere along the line, people became complacent. So the Journey Home Group is saying, let's pick up where all of the great teachers left or are leaving off. Let's not assume or presume to know everything. Let's research, do our homework, and most importantly, let's travel and share with others what we have learned, not to get them to follow us, but to inspire them that they too will pick it up. And because this is not a one-person deal.
Okay.
This is not a one organization deal. Because the way you may say it may be the way that the universe or nature or the Most High or God or whatever name people need to make them sleep at night. The way that you say it may be the way that this particular individual needs to hear it for that DNA, that RNA, that divine in them to come to life.
So each community has its own context.
Said another way, we would say, to all nations of people are sent warners and guides.
That's right.
Are sent people to convey a message. So we can't presume to know who the messengers or message bringers for each group is supposed to be. All we can do is do our part as much as nature has enabled us to have within our DNA to do, and that's what we're trying to do.
Okay, but you originally come from Liberia.
I was born in Liberia, West Africa.
And well, Liberia, I mean, we're talking about fairy tales now, and you call Gavi. Liberia is one of the tragedies of the African world. I mean, back at the turn of the century, Marcus Mosiah Garvey had negotiated a land transaction and then the President Tubman, I think.
That's right.
And he was betrayed for Firestone. And Firestone, all those tires we burn up on when we showing off for the young ladies, and we burn those tires. A lot of that rubber comes from Liberia.
That's right.
And the Universal Negro Improvement Association, their repatriation agenda was to begin in Liberia. So it's very important that we're hearing from you today, Dr. Varmah, because not many of our people know of Liberia. And a little later on, I'm going to ask you some questions concerning what's going on in Liberia and the fairy tales that has created that situation, not only there, but the entire African continent. Sorry, Sister Morris, you're not from Liberia.
No, I'm not.
But you're a doctor in your own right, and you also published a number of books as well.
Yes, I have.
You originally came from Jamaica.
My parents are from, my whole family's from Jamaica.
But where did you grow up?
Well, I grew up in New York, in the States, and I was born in England myself.
Okay, so you come, and you were born in Liverpool.
Yes.
You mentioned that to me earlier, and I want you all to know this. She was born in Liverpool. That's one of the primary slave ports of Britain. When our ancestors came here, they either stopped off in Liverpool or down there in Bristol, where I was born. But it's important that we have somebody here who's born in a former slave port, because it puts us in this context for our discussion of these fairy tales.
That's right.
I don't want to preempt you, Brother Ali. Go ahead. Okay, but I just want to get right down to the meat of this, what we came here to discuss. Fairy tales.
Fairy tales.
Yeah. What is the fairy tale that you are talking about, Dr. Varmah?
Well, when we speak of fairy tales, we're speaking about the variation or the difference between tribal realities and fairy tales. What often happens is, in life today, most people have what they've come to accept, what we term as accepted realities. What's an accepted reality? An accepted reality is something that my mother or my grandmother or my grandfather told or taught to me. They never questioned it. It was taught to them by those who never questioned it, and it was taught, and so forth. And we've just all come to accept these things as this is what it is, and this is why it is, and we never dare question it, because this is what we've always learned, and this is it. Whereas in ancient times, we say in ancient time today, ancient what they call Africa today, the continent of Africa, or amongst the Amexims of Latin America, or amongst the ancient Arawak people of North America. In ancient times, or even the Indus River Valley for that matter, but in ancient times, we had tribal realities. And we had our symbolisms, and we told our children stories that explained to them what our culture said we were supposed to be, how we were supposed to treat each other, how we were supposed to look at one another, what our goals were supposed to be, etc. Somewhere along the line, whether by way of colonialization or by way of the kidnapping and enslavement of many indigenous peoples, somewhere along the line, they began to slip. And I don't mean they as just the white man. I mean they as in colonial powers, because the East Indian slave trade was involved in it. The Arab slave trade was involved in it. There were more than just the European slave trades. And these various traders in human stock, which is what we were looked upon as cargo, they began to indoctrinate us with their belief systems in order to give us their desires and their goals.
I want you to hold that thought. We're going to have to take a break. And we'll be back in a few minutes. But I really want to follow up on that point because it's very important, Dr. Varmah. Thank you. We'll be right back. Thank you very much.